Okay. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure and honor of having Christian Ward, who is the Chief Data Officer of
Yes.
Yext. And for y'all that don't know who Yext is, we'll get into that. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't know, but I guarantee your SEO person knows exactly who they are. Thank you for being here, Christian.
My pleasure, Ken. Good to see you.
Yeah, and I saw Christian at a seminar that we were both or conference a couple of months ago in Vegas, and I don't listen to a lot of people speak, but I went in there and sat down and listened. And I was just mesmerized, and I went up and grabbed him before he left. I said, "Would you do a podcast? Because you got some good knowledge. I want to share it with our people." And he graciously agreed to. So thank you, Christian.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know if you remember, so I saw your session and I said, your whole principle of doing the most necessary things, focusing on what's necessary. And I feel like you were doing it from the business of law practice. I was doing it from the data perspective, but there were so many similarities. So it's truly a pleasure to reconnect and discuss.
Well, thank you. So tell us, tell us about Yext in case people don't know, and then what is a chief data officer? I mean, what do you do? What do you do?
Sure. Yeah. So first off, Yext, YEXT. It's a company I've been with for 11 years. It's been around probably 15, 16 years. And really what we are is we manage data. So we put a brand or a business's data into a knowledge graph at our platform. And that data is synchronized directly to Google, Bing, Apple, Amazon, 200 different platforms, including OpenAI and now AI platforms. Because fundamentally, if you're a law practice, you actually care about the data about your business more than anyone else. And so rather than leaving it to chance, most of our clients and professionals, they put the data into our system to ensure that in real time, that data is correct and accurate. We also do things like we build web pages so crawlers get the right data. We do social posts so that has the right data. In the end, it's really about making sure that the best authority, the business themselves, are powering every other platform out there because generally speaking, most consumers aren't on your website. I mean, we hope they get there eventually, but they're actually in these other platforms first. And so it's really critical to make sure that the data that those platforms have is absolutely correct, it's updated frequently, and it's got the consistency all over the web. That really helps with things like search engine optimization and just generally for the machines to trust the data. So at Yext, I've been the chief data officer of several companies. My role at Yext is a little different, which is kind of fun, which is I'm not really trying to monetize or figure out Yext data assets. That's what mostly a chief data officer would do is they'd be at a company and let's say they worked in groceries. They'd try to analyze all the arbitrage opportunities of one supplier over another. They'd try to make money with the data. In my world, I actually work with our clients' data. So if I'm working, let's say, with law firms, I'm going to go through and understand, is there a relationship, let's say, between search queries and where people went to school, where they got their law degree, how long they've been practicing, what areas of focus are getting more attention than others? So I'm really focused on what is the client's data like, and then what can we do to improve that so the signal that's going out to search and now AI systems has everything it needs to help the consumer on their journey to your door. And so it's fun because it literally in the morning, I was talking with a massive healthcare system here in the United States. In the afternoons, I'm typically talking with retail or food. So I basically get to see every industry and how they're handling getting their data right, which at this stage in the game is probably one of the most important things any business can do.
Yeah, and with the AI, artificial intelligence, you talked a lot about that at the event, and it's changing everything. I mean, how do you see it? I mean, and here's the other deal I'm seeing. I don't know, but I see something news coming out every day, and I don't. How do we know who to trust and who not to trust? Because all these guys saying they got the silver bullet, and everybody can't have the silver bullet, you know?
Yeah, it's a little less that everyone's got a silver bullet and a little more like everyone's finally owning a gun. Not sure, and I think that's the challenge, right? So you do see something new every single day. there's certain people, and I'm happy to share. I'll give you a list of some of the people that I pay attention to that I just think are very good at keeping their, sort of not even in a commercial sense. They're more just sort of really great aggregators of what's important, what's not. There's one gentleman, Rowan Chung, who does a phenomenal called the AI Rundown. Everyone should subscribe to that. There's another gentleman, Ethan Mollick, Mollick. He's the academic view of what's coming down, but I think he's the head of the entrepreneurial program at Wharton or something like that, are just brilliant. But there's certain people where they're the ones I watch, and then I'll deep dive into individual pieces. But the thing that I think is really happening with AI and why it's so transformative is we shouldn't be looking at it just sort of one-dimensionally. It affects every part of our business. So I know lots of law firms that are helping read briefs and providing summaries. That's like a very basic internal use case. But it can also rewrite all of your corporate emails in time so that it includes additional caveats, or it reads, or it can warn you, hey, this email is not referencing something in the brief. There's all these like checks and balances inside of, let's say, a law firm. Then there's what AI is doing to customers finding the law firm to work with, which is now completely blowing up, which it always used to be, how high could you rank? But a lot of ranking for law firms was how close is the human to your office, which is not a good way to rank. I'm sorry, attorneys should not be ranked by distance. And so there's these elements of AI's opening all that up, which is, you can literally go to AI now and say, I'd like somebody that got their degree in law at the University of Notre Dame. That's where my brother got his. I have an affinity for it. I want to work with that. People make decisions for all sorts of reasons. And so what AI is doing is it's opening up that whatever you want the world to know about your practice, it's not just like really basic SEO things anymore. It's kind of everything. And so AI is completely transforming the way search operates, which I think is good. First off, I'm not anti-Google. I think Google's amazing. It's gotten us here. But I do think we're all going to look back maybe 5 years from now and be like, man, I can't believe we did this keyword thing for 20 years and threw ad dollars at it, when you realize you can now just have a conversation with your AI at the scene of a fender bender, and it's going to walk you through who to talk to and who's best given that exact situation. That's going to feel very strange to people, but that's very soon.
So how's that going to happen? What's going to take place to make that happen 5 years from now, or whenever?
Yeah, so a couple things. First off, we're in this very early phase. So right now, if many of I'm sure your audience follows sort of the unearthing of the large language models, and then we had GPT-3, 3.5, 4, and it's progressing. That progression, the best way to think about it is almost like a child learning new capabilities, right? So let's say they're learning the language and they're now starting to talk and they're starting to understand. Well, as you move through the different sort of cognitive stages of human development, that's not a bad analogy for where we're going now, which is we're right about going from high school into college into post-grad in terms of what the AI can understand that we want it to do. But all of that still is pretty much, I'll call it that's like a game where you move one piece at a time. So think of chess. Sort of like if you're a law firm, you're like, here's a brief. Summarize it for me, and it comes back. Then it moves. You move, then it moves, you move. And we call that a discrete game. So chess is discrete. I move, it moves, and you can see the whole board. That is very quickly transitioning into what is called a continuous game or an infinite game. And what people don't realize is discrete games, you're trying to win. You're trying to get to an outcome. Continuous games, the point of a continuous game is to keep playing. That's actually the point, which is a very different feeling, that's where the AI doesn't just turn on and move to your move. That's where it's a companion helping you actually do things, where it's not like you open an app and you use it. This is, no, your whole use case is the app, meaning your daily process. And so this next coming year is where you're really going to start seeing that happen. Well, they call it agentic or agent-based, which is the AI starts to be able to like open your email and go over to your text messages and pull an image, a meme somebody sent you that was funny, and you could say, hey, go with my text, grab that meme from my wife. I want you to send it to the whole family via email because my parents aren't on tech. Like, it will literally just do that for you across platforms instead of today. It's sort of like you launch ChatGPT, you talk to it, it stops, and then you stop. It opens it up to where it works across the whole thing. And I think when that happens, a lot of people that are not necessarily skeptical, but haven't tried it are going to see their friend using this thing to run part of their business or to get all the groceries for them. All these things that sort of are either complex or not, that starts to get really interesting once you let the AI sort of escape the app-based singular discrete game and start to just run in the background of everything you're doing. And that's this year. That is absolutely where this is all going. In fact, in the last few days, there's been a lot of articles about the enabling of this agentic approach by ChatGPT, by Anthropic's Claude product. It's getting to where you can give it a series of tasks and it'll tell you, it's like, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And it goes and it comes back and it does what you asked it to do. That's a very different world. And that's what's coming next.
And so, it's like somebody was looking, so if somebody's looking at a personal injury lawyer, they might just say, what should I do? I've been in a car wreck. What should I do? And then it could actually take them to your web. I guess it could tell them what to do or take them to somebody's website.
So it's already doing something in between, which is really important, which is, sorry, I have my board, but basically in the past, if you think about search is also a discrete game. Someone types in, car accident injury. They move, then the results come back. Google moves. Then they go, oh, that's wrong. I mean, personal injury, Jacksonville, Florida, right? They keep refining. That's discrete. That's not what it's already better than that, which is now you go to AI and you say, hey, I was in an accident. And the AI goes, I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you okay? What happened? And you come back and you answer it. And then it comes back and it goes, well, it sounds like you should talk to an attorney. And you say, great, can you help me with that? And it says, well, let me ask you 5 more questions before I introduce. It's so different than this. This is what's so amazing is this is called, by the way, you know how people talk about being a prompt engineer? Like, you need to learn how to prompt. Actually, you spent some time on this. I couldn't agree more that has been this like 18-month window. But what's happening is prompting is inverting. Meaning instead of the human having to know what to ask, the AI is asking the human what it needs to know. So it's very soon it's becoming the AI asks the human the questions to get the better outcome instead of the human having to understand how to ask. And so prompt inversion, that's already started. You can see that a lot with ChatGPT today with their voice mode, their advanced voice mode. It inverts the prompts very quickly where you'll say something like, hey, I want to go to Italy this summer. And it starts asking you all these questions like, well, do you like the outdoors? Are you a museum person? Is this about food and wine? Give me a little more. And you say, well, definitely food and wine. Looked at some museums, but we really want to get out in the countryside and see that. And it changes all of its next questions. And so if you're an attorney, think of 2 things. Number one, this fundamentally was all centralized at one place, which is Google over the last 20 years. And I have no issue with that. I think that was very necessary for the world in terms of access to content. But this is unearthing knowledge. This is content access. This is knowledge access. And what this does, and it changes, is you're now at this point where I say, hey, I was in an accident. Here's what happened. It says, well, what kind of car do you have? And you tell it everything. This is the new funnel. This happens before it even recommends a law firm. It's gathering information to then say, well, based on everything you told me, there's actually 3 big firms. There's 2 small firms. Here's where I found the information. Click here to make an appointment. That's where you start getting into the AI starts to take over search. And I do want to say one thing here, which is there's this issue of complexity. And what I mean by that is, the law, whether maybe many attorneys won't feel this way, but it's very complex to the average consumer. It's not like if this was low complexity and this is high, this right here in the sort of like how much time do I want to spend on this problem? Way out over here is divorce attorney. It's very complex and I'm not happy about it, right? Over here might be real estate attorney. That I want to spend time on it. I want to buy a new home and it's not, Then you have like right here, down here, where it's okay, but it's not complex. This is buying cereal. Okay. It's not complex. Nobody cares about it. And so AI is absolutely taking over the search experience for this, whereas the less complex stuff is probably going to be these agents take over because it's not complex. But the human AI interaction for complex things, which is arguably almost all of the legal world, that's going to be very much a place for AI to take over with this sort of approach versus the simple searching.
So if I'm a lawyer and I want to be at the top of this AI, what do I need to be doing? I mean, why do I prepare for this?
Yeah. So number one, most attorneys at this point, when they think about growing their practice, they're well aware of not only search engine optimization, but also just this idea of you have to be present. Like it's almost like your face in the place. You've got to be on these platforms where they list you, these directories, because it's just a way to send a signal out to the market that you are in fact there and that you're available. I think where this goes very, very quickly is the more knowledge you can put out there about your practice, the better. So in the past, it used to be like, make sure your name, address, phone, maybe your areas of specialty, certain things like what geographies you work in, certain basic things. It's going to go much deeper. For example, I was with a client that sells glasses. I was in New York City and I typed in and showed them, hey, if I type in, I broke my reading glasses, here's what the AI does, both Google and OpenAI. And it pulls back, and on one of them, it listed my client as the number one pick. And the client's like, awesome, we're doing great. And I'm like, no, this isn't that type of show. You're not going to like what I'm about to show you. So it shows them first. But then I asked it, hey, when I travel for work, it's really important to me to work with people that are very active in the community. Like I want people that are active in the locations, like re-rank them all based on that. And the AI did. Now you can't do that in Google. You can't go to Google and be like, show me all the attorneys, but rank them by how they support our community. You will be able to do that with AI. That means we're unbundling how people choose to engage with your practice, which means you need to start thinking about what are all the reasons someone wants to work with you. It could be where you went to school. It could be what communities you're involved in. It could be what your case history is. Many, let's say, personal injury attorneys, you often see, the amount of money that they've, procured on behalf of their clients. Well, the reality is that's an important data point. But you can't type into Google right now, biggest winning lawsuits and sort the attorneys. You can't do that because Google's not designed. They want you to buy an ad that says, here's how much we got you, right? They don't want it to be that easy. So the AI, on the other hand, is like, if you give me the data, I will rank by whatever data is available because that's best for the human. So there's a difference here between ad-supported search and what you've had to do before. The new paradigm is going to be, how do you put your knowledge, everything about your firm, who you support, what you do, what winnings you've had, whatever it may be. You want to put all of that into these AI systems and on the web. So on your web pages and everything else, the way to do that is you can work with platforms like mine, but you can also directly reach out and try and put your data into these platforms. You can also make sure your website, it's not enough to just sort of like have, John supports the local community for 25 years. Don't do that. That's great. But tell us what you supported. Give us the facts. All of this objective knowledge. What awards has your practice gotten in the past? All of these elements, they matter to people. And so as soon as people start to realize they don't have to search by typing in like gibberish, which is like personal injury, Volvo, Boca Raton, like that's gibberish. They're going to just start talking to this thing and it's going to have questions. And if your data helps answer that question, that's how you're going to differentiate yourself. It becomes much more an honesty game of objective factual knowledge helps the AI by saying, well, look, based on everything you told me, there's really only two attorneys I'd recommend. One's in Georgia, one's in Florida. Here's you're in Jacksonville. Here's the in between. That's the type of thing that you're going to see.
That's wild. That's wild. So that means you got to put a lot more content on your website, stuff that you might not have thought was important at one time, and that becomes very important.
Yeah, it's not only is it not is it more, it needs something else, which is it needs to be structured. And so there's a thing in so back, gosh, it's probably 20 something years ago. Google, Yandex, Bing, and Yahoo, back when several of those were big, they got together and they sat as search engines and they said, hey, when you guys are on a website and you see the word Mustang, do you know if it's the horse or the car? Okay. And so they all kind of agreed it's kind of hard sometimes based on the context because they're talking about going fast. What a
Right.
great ride, right? It could be the car or the horse. And so the
Right.
AI, the search doesn't know. And so they created a nonprofit called schema.org. And schema.org, everyone can look it up, it's still there. You can actually take your web page, put it into their schema tester, and it will tell you what data is structured. So what they asked the internet to do is they basically said, hey, listen, do you want to rank higher or you want to make it clear that we understand your web page? Inside the code, we want you to mark up, which means it's in a JSON format, but it's basically the structure where it says, hey, when I said Mustang, inside the code, it says actually meant the horse this time. And so what happens is it's like a spoon feeding to the algorithms the way they want to know because there's only one identifier that is horse or animal versus vehicle. And so it helps the machine make sense of your page. So instead of me telling your audience, hey, put more content out there, I'm actually saying something slightly different, which is put the content out there, but put it out there in a schema marked up way, which you can work with your tech teams, or again, you can also work with Yext, but anyone that understands we're sort of spoon feeding the machines. Because here's the reality. I looked at some numbers before we hopped on here, just because it's been something bothering me for a little bit, which is today, if you're a brand, and I'm going to draw a database, this is all the data about you as a practice. And let's call this your knowledge graph. You have all your data. It's where you went to school, who you serve, what communities, what what your pricing schedule is, what your consultation schedule is, all that stuff. And this data needs to go to machines, and it also needs to be readable by the human beings that come to your website. What's fascinating though is, do you know the average amount of time on a website that people spend today? So if like a brand's website, the average stay time on a website today, so the human is 57 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
So that's all websites. But you realize that's probably right also for attorneys. They land, they read 10 seconds, and they're like, I'm out. And then you have people that read 3 minutes, but the average is 57 seconds. Do you know how much time the average person is on their cell phone, according to Apple's latest data of screen time? It's roughly 7 hours and 30 minutes a day, which is bonkers. Okay. Those people are not on your website. They are actually on machine applications. They're on Google, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they're on TikTok. They don't really hang out in websites. In a kind of sad, weird way, websites don't really exist for humans. They exist to send data to the machines. And then the machine ranks the website. So the whole point is you have to get the machine to trust your data before a human's ever going to see it. Meaning if Instagram, TikTok, AI, ChatGPT, Perplexity, if they don't believe or like your data, they're not going to show it to the human. So we always think of websites as like, well, that's where the humans go. I'm like, no, they really don't. They pretty much hang out in these areas. And so the whole point of this is if you want to leverage AI, if you want to leverage search, it's about getting the machine to trust it when it's asked a bunch of questions. The machine has to go, oh, I know an attorney that went to the University of Notre Dame that sponsors the local community and the youth soccer team. Here, it's Paul or it's Sally. Whatever that is, the machine controls it, not the humans. And so when you build a website, what I'm saying is put more knowledge, so increase your knowledge, make this bigger, but be sure to use schema so you're feeding the machines what they can understand rather than worrying so much about the human beings. I'm not saying for the human beings, they need a nice web page, but you know what they really need? Click here to schedule a consultation. They just need the next action. But because
Right.
the AI will already have explained to them that you went to the University of Notre Dame and that you like that all happens over here. Over here, they just need to make an appointment because they've already been funneled or sort of let's say streamlined to the right people clicking.
Yeah.
And again, I do recognize this is a little uncomfortable for people because I think generally this whole thing of, well, build your website, do this. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's all correct. But this little thing of structuring the data is really important because the crawlers that go to your website, they need to understand that when you say that you won a big case against someone that was rear-ended by a Mustang, the machine better know that's the car, not the horse. And
Right.
that's the type of thing. Yeah. Does that make sense? It's really about the machine.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's what we're all trying to game is to get to the top of the rankings by giving Google what it wants,
Yes.
and of course they keep changing what they want, with the new algorithms and everything. And then people, what I've seen over the years, and you probably have too, is whenever they come out with, somebody figures out how to game it, and then they have to change the rules again. I mean that's really, because they their sole deal is to provide relevant content, but also to make money.
Yes.
And they're doing pretty good at both of it, I think. Although I don't think it's going to happen, but if they were to have to sell Chrome, I don't think it really would affect them that much, would it? Or would it?
I don't think so at all. In fact, I forget who said it. It might have been Larry or Sergey. I saw an article just the other day, and they basically said, they're like, look, we can do this, but it's not like the consumer is not just going to piece it back together by looking at the internet with Chrome. Like it's still going to happen. I think a far more interesting approach is, if they have to start to sell their crawl. So if they have to let other AI companies use their crawl data, that's pretty interesting, right? Because there's really only two companies that crawl at this scale, which is Google and Microsoft, right? Now, OpenAI and others are starting to crawl, but the infrastructure to crawl trillions of pages of content, store it, index it, all that, that's a lot. And so if they had to open that up, that's also in this finding, by the way. It's not just Chrome. It's that they would have to allow other companies to buy their crawl. Then it gets a little more interesting because then you might have a lot of people buying segments of the crawl and building AI that's better than one Chrome engine or Google search on top of it. So look, I'm not an attorney. I don't pretend. I more look at it from the technical aspect, saying, look, there's definitely a few paths here that would open up a lot more competition. And also, we're not even really solving the ad problem, right? Like the whole ad ecosystem is what the suit was primarily about. But in a funny way, I erased it. But this whole dialogue thing that I had before, where the AI is talking to you, that's kind of the end of ads, and it becomes more like offers, right? Because if the AI already knows you were just in an accident, your neck hurts, it's already told you to go to the hospital, it's given you 3 lawyers, and you say, hey, I'm on the way to the hospital now, can you contact all 3 lawyers? And whoever has the next available to meet me at the hospital, or they could send a representative, just go with them and tell the other 2. Now you have the agent doing that for you as a human. And that's the next step. Whereas an attorney, you need to make sure that whatever your website and everything else, it needs to have the availability or the ability to get to the hospital. Like there are other pieces that are going to matter more. And so I think if we were to look back at search, search comes from the Latin circo, circus. It literally means to circle. It's like a 3-ring circus is search. It's a circle. You look in the rings. The reality is that's what search is. Search is horseshoes and hand grenades, right? Close counts, right? This is not the same thing as like now actual knowledge retrieval is different. That's what dialogue is, which is from the Greek dia and logos, through between words. So if I have all these through between and the words get me to one answer, like one attorney meets that criteria, well, there's no advertising model in that, right? Like if there's an answer, then why am I showing you 30 lawyer ads? I'm just going to give you the answer. So this has an existential change of ads will continue to be important, particularly when people are really broad. They're unbranded. They don't know what they're looking for. But if AI keeps making that funnel small and small and smaller, and there's only 2 law firms that meet that criteria, then don't show me the ads. give me an offer. Like, tell me you'll do a free consultation, or tell me, something about you that helps me pick you over the other one. But that
Right.
gets very different. Look, I don't think people have nearly the level of both panic and joy at what's happening. It is a complete change to the customer journey. And it's all going to be based on what knowledge do the machines have about you to meet that journey. But you're going to get better quality leads. You're going to get people that really are who you're looking for, not the 50 phone calls where two of them are actually the right client base. You're going to get people that have had a full blown. Now, if we can help educate the AI on what it can answer, getting them there, that's what gives you better. You're going to just have much higher quality connection because you're not playing hand grenades. You're playing dialogue, and dialogue is always a better way to get to an answer than the sort of discrete game of search.
Wow. Well, it's definitely coming. I mean, I could see it. Yeah. It's
Yeah, I think you see it. Even in your talk, and I understand everyone wasn't at the conference we were at, but you kept talking about sort of the first principles of running a firm properly, and one of the areas that you had spoken about, if you don't mind my saying, was just the efficacy of getting back to people in a timely manner, like not letting opportunity fall on the ground.
right.
And look, that's a huge problem for businesses. But the same system that I'm telling you exists to help the customer can also help you. Where when someone calls in, you have an AI answer and ask the person 50 questions, document the whole thing so that you get a brief while you're at the hospital trying to work with a new client or meet someone that needs you. And you get a brief via text of, hey, you really need to call this one back, or can I give it to your partner? This is really important. Like
Right.
that's almost here. And I think for a lot of businesses, that's really where they tend to not fail, but they don't, they subsist and they don't excel because they can't get the efficiencies out of their organization. And I think that's another area every practice should be looking at. Obviously, I know there are many legalities of information, recordings, all those. Knowing that all that still has to be navigated, there are real opportunities to improve. Like, for example, we're using a tool right now to record our transcript. We're using Zoom. There's a transcript, there's a recording. There's all these things that they have the data that can help you. The
Yeah.
AI is the thing that's going to sort of jump you from knowing how to code to get value out of it. Now you can just talk to it and get value out of it. And that's a big advantage. It's something we looked forward to for years, but it's finally getting here.
Yeah. Damn. We could talk about this forever. Well, listen, any parting words, and then if somebody wants to explore Yext or learn more about Yext, how's the best way for them to do that? And then any parting words of wisdom?
Sure. So first off, we're just at yext.com. And I actually don't mind telling your audience, I'm just Christian at yext.com. I've been here 11 years. I have AI set up. If it's a lead and I need to route it, I can send it right to somebody that'll get back to you. So it doesn't bother me. You can use me as a contact. But what I would say is this: I think overall a lot is going to change. But there's a great book. I think it's called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. He's the founder of Google DeepMind. He runs AI now at many of these companies, and he had this great anecdote. He said, like he I want to say like came home and there was like a new piece of furniture in the house. Or I laughed because I came home and there was like a candle, big candle in our dining room. And I asked my wife, I'm like, where'd you get the candle? And she's like, oh, it was at the local fair and blah blah blah. And I'm like, how much did that thing cost? She's like $250, like $250 for a can. What are you talking about? And she goes, yeah, but it was handcrafted. It was this and that. So she starts telling me this story. And it's like furniture, right? We live in a world today of IKEA, and yet there are more quality handcrafted furniture makers today than there were before. Because what happens is when technology enables us to have 50 candles from Target for $4, the world tends to still gravitate towards human connection, which is the stories, the relationships. I think my parting words would be is this is not to be feared. It's like every other technological advancement, which is it tends to give us back the only human asset, which is time. The more time we have, the more connections we can make as human beings, or the more we can hone our craft and the more we can explain it to the world. I think you should be embracing this as a yet another tool to release more time so that you as a practice can make the human connections work better.
Good advice. I mean, listen, it's all about relationships. We know that.
It is.
I mean, it always has been, always will be. I don't care what you put in between it. It's like you said, the connection, the human connection, the relationships.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this, Christian. Very enlightening, as always. I appreciate it, my friend.
I appreciate it, Ken. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to doing it again.
All right. All right. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.